The 2026 MotoGP season is already peeking out from behind the curtain of pre-season, and with the Sepang test scheduled to take place from 3 to 5th of February, a host of major questions are swirling through the minds of fans, team personnel, and pundits alike. Two narratives stand out most prominently as preparations intensify: the ongoing doubts surrounding Jorge Martin's physical condition ahead of the opening preseason test, and Marc Marquez's response to the competitive landscape he will face in an increasingly fierce world title fight. When these two storylines converge, what emerges is not merely a conventional motorcycle racing tale, but a drama shaped by physical fragility, competitive ambition, and a series of scenarios that could come to define the 2026 season. Jorge Martin, who claimed his maiden title in 2024 with Pramac Ducati, had intended to begin the defense of his crown with Aprilia following his switch of teams. Instead, that resurgence has been overshadowed by a seemingly unending sequence of injuries. As reported in a recent article by Crash.net, Martin is now considered a major doubt for participation in the Sepang 2026 test, a development that drags the dark shadow of his injury-ravaged 2025 season into the very start of a new campaign. Martin's physical inconsistency is far from a new story. 1 year earlier in Sepang, he suffered a major preseason crash at the same circuit, sustaining fractures to his right hand and multiple breaks in his left foot. Injuries that became part of a broader run of misfortune throughout 2025. This was followed by a supermoto accident that resulted in fractures to the radius and scaphoid bone in his left wrist, along with heel and rib injuries. When Martin eventually returned in Qatar, his comeback was abruptly halted by severe rib damage and a collapsed lung following a high-side crash, forcing yet another period on the sidelines. The setbacks did not end there, as he later suffered a fractured collarbone after tangling with his teammate Marco Bezzecchi at the start of the Motegi sprint. What makes the situation all the more tragic is the fact that Martin did appear towards the end of the 2025 season, competing at the Valencia Grand Prix and taking part in the post-season test, without publicly disclosing any ongoing physical issues during Aprilia's recent team launch. However, reports from outlets such as El Periodico and Motorsport.com suggest that he has yet to make a full recovery, even after undergoing 2 additional surgical procedures in recent weeks. The first operation addressed the scaphoid bone in his left wrist, an injury notoriously difficult to heal, while the second aimed to alleviate discomfort stemming from the fractured collarbone. Under these circumstances, Martin's chances of taking part in the Sepang test are widely regarded as slim, potentially leaving him with just one remaining opportunity for pre-season running, the 2-day Buriram test in mid-February, before the season opener at the same circuit later that month. This is not merely a case of a rider missing track time. It is a story of how injuries can erode momentum, not only in a rider's career but also in a team's development trajectory. Martin joined Aprilia with the expectation of becoming the new figurehead capable of lifting the no-ala-based manufacturer to the summit. Yet his relentless injury troubles have not only battered his body, but also weakened the team's prospects of gathering crucial preseason development data. Without Martin on track in Sepang, Aprilia will be heavily reliant on test rider Lorenzo Savadori to deliver vital early technical feedback. The drama sharpens further when one considers the rising form of Bezzecchi. His teammate has seized the spotlight with 3 Grand Prix victories, 3 sprint wins, and a record-breaking 3rd place in the final World Championship standings, the best result ever achieved by Aprilia. In Martin's absence, Bezzecchi has become not only Aprilia's primary reference point, but also a symbol that this relatively small Italian outfit may possess far greater strength than initially anticipated. The other competitive axis of this preseason narrative comes from Ducati, through Marc Marquez, who has recently been crowned MotoGP World Champion and is now set to race for the Ducati factory team during the 2025 and 2026 seasons. Speaking to Sky Italia, Marquez shared his views on who he considers to be his strongest rivals in the 2026 title fight, and his answer offers intriguing insight into the shifting dynamics of the grid. Rather than immediately pointing to the rider who finished second in the official standings, Marquez identified his own brother, Alex Marquez, as the primary rival he expects to face in 2026 based on last season's final positions. Alex concluded the year as runner-up, recording no fewer than 17 second-place finishes behind Marc, and notably becoming the first rider to defeat him in a direct sprint duel at Silverstone, as well as ending Marc's winning streak in Catalonia. Adding further weight to his credentials, Alex has been rewarded with a promotion to full factory-spec Ducati machinery for 2026, marking an entirely new level of competitiveness. The significance of Marc's choice lies not solely in their familial bond, but in the competitive context surrounding it. Long overshadowed by his elder brother, Alex now finds himself equipped with a genuine factory Ducati, an opportunity many believe he has earned. With machinery far more competitive than Aprilia's often inconsistent RSGP, Alex enters 2026 with a realistic expectation of truly challenging Marc for the championship. This introduces an added layer of complexity to MotoGP's narrative, a fraternal duel potentially taking center stage rather than a straightforward clash between major manufacturers. In Marc's ranking, however, Alex's runner-up status is only the beginning. Next on his list is Francesco Bagnaia. The two-time world champion has demonstrated his capabilities through double victories in Japan and sustained competitiveness, even if occasionally undermined by patches of inconsistency. Marc's decision to place Bagnaia ahead of Marco Bezzecchi in his hierarchy reflects respect for experience, historical success, and the reality that whenever Bagnaia finds his rhythm, he remains a formidable threat to anyone on the grid. Following Bagnaia and Bezzecchi, Marc also mentioned Pedro Acosta, the young rider widely regarded as a generational talent who has already delivered eye-catching results. While Acosta has at times scored more points than Bagnaia across certain phases of the season, largely due to the stark contrast between podium finishes and DNFs, this volatility underscores how both KTM and Acosta represent a significant wildcard in the competitive mix. When asked about his own expectations, Marc openly acknowledged the pressure that comes with his position. Riding for the Ducati factory team means that fighting for the title is not merely an ambition, but an obligation. "If you wear red, you have to fight for the championship," he said, underlining Ducati's dominant status over recent years. At the same time, he cautioned that rivals will have made substantial gains, opening the door to a far tighter title battle than in previous seasons. Notably, Marc also pointed out that in his absence during the latter part of last season, particularly after his crash in Mandalika, Aprilia went on to win 3 of the final 4 Grand Prix. This is far from a meaningless statistic. It highlights how fluid the current MotoGP power balance truly is. Aprilia, should it manage to combine Bezzecchi's form with Martin's physical continuity, something that remains uncertain, could yet emerge as an unexpected threat to Ducati, Yamaha, and the rest of the field. Returning to Sepang 2026, Martin's absence would carry significant implications for the dynamics of the test. Preseason running is not solely about outright lap time, but about data collection, fine-tuning setups, and mapping tire strategies, elements that are irreplaceable, particularly for teams seeking to counter Ducati's dominance. Martin is renowned for the precision and depth of his technical feedback. Without him on the bike, Aprilia must rely on Bezzecchi and its test rider, which may prove insufficient in uncovering the RSGP's ultimate performance ceiling. On the competitive front, even a temporary absence from Martin could offer a psychological advantage toward his rivals. Riders such as Bagnaia, Acosta, and Marc Marquez gain additional time to familiarize themselves with new machinery, refine their rhythm, and adapt to traction control, electronics, and tire strategies before the season truly begins. In MotoGP, where mere tenths of a second often separate podium contenders from those outside the top 10, such preparation can translate into a tangible advantage. Equally important is the long-term physical dimension of Martin's situation. Repeated injuries do not only affect outright speed or bravery on the brakes, but also the psychological side of riding. The confidence to attack corners aggressively, the need to adapt riding style to manage pain, and the physical endurance required for intense 45-minute race distances. With such an extensive and unresolved injury history, the fundamental question remains whether Martin can truly return at 100% for the opening round, even if he is deemed fit to ride at Buriram. Meanwhile, the title fight involving Marc and his challengers reflects a broader shift within MotoGP, a blend of experience and emerging talent. Marc Marquez, long perceived as living in his brother's shadow, is now projected as the rider most ready to challenge Marc's dominance. At the same time, Bagnaia, despite his reputation and 2 world titles, has shown vulnerability through fluctuating results and costly non-scores. Pedro Acosta, with his raw speed tempered by inconsistency, remains a wild card capable of delivering unexpected surprises. The combined conclusion of these intertwined narratives is that the 2026 MotoGP preseason is about far more than technical preparation alone. It is a dramatic stage where physical health, developmental continuity, and competitive psychology intersect. Martin's potential absence could prove to be more than just a missing name on the Sepang timing sheets. It may shift the competitive balance itself, granting Ducati, Marc Marquez, and other leading contenders the chance to strengthen their position before the first race even begins. At the same time, the emergence of Alex Marquez as a genuine rival, alongside the latent threats of Bagnaia and Acosta, signals that 2026 could stand as one of the most competitive and unpredictable seasons MotoGP has witnessed in recent years.